Peter, how are you feeling tonight? This is an actual question.
Yeah, no.
Probably from his psychologist.
No, thank you for asking, whoever asked. How am I going to? I actually thought, I wonder if someone's going to ask that question because it is Mental Health Week. And I know that I think the Are You OK Day is a really great day to ask that question. At the moment, I'm in a stable cycle. I'm okay. This is what you normally get with me. I'm just tired. That's the only thing. But apart from that, I'm just about to go on holidays in about 3 hours. But apart from that, I'm well. But thank you for asking.
Can I just follow up with that? With initiatives like Are You OK Day, does that suffer from the problem that some say that International Women's Day suffers from as well, where it's like we dedicate one day to this, when it really should be a very generalised approach that we have in terms of our care for each other, particularly as it sort of affects that many people in our community? What do you guys think? Let's start, Dr. Justine.
Yeah, you can go first.
I think if we lived in a perfect world where there was equality and people loved each other and treated each other with respect, then yes, we don't need one day to celebrate or remember. But I think because we don't, it is actually good to have these times where we try to actively, consciously remember not to be dicks to each other and care about each other's feelings. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, I have very mixed kind of feelings. On one hand, Are You OK? Because I try and talk about this publicly, Are You OK? I get that day, I get about 5, I'm getting 5 things, an hour of people going, are you okay? Do I text and that sort of thing? I'm going, yeah, I'm fine, but why are you asking me just today? You should have asked me last week. So on one hand, I want to say, I think the day itself can drive me personally a little nuts, but I think that the process of that, I think of actually having that day is a good step forward. It would be great if we have an Are You OK every day, one day every week, for example, rather than just one day a year. But
that probably feeds into this next question. Peter, what if the person hasn't told you they have a mental health issue, but you think they do? How do you broach it? And if you don't have that one special day that week where you can, are you okay? I think you're not okay.
Yeah, I actually think that the friend that talked to me at university, they were fairly brash about the conversation, but actually that's kind of what I needed at the time. The way that they did that is they kind of said, hey, here is what I'm seeing, and gave me a bunch of objective behaviours, like, hey, you're drinking too much, and I'm watching your episodes of mood swings and things like that. I think there's an issue here. And if someone comes to you and says that, then go and get yourself checked out. Like with me, even just to prove them wrong. I mean, but it's better to actually check that rather than to be in doubt. But if you're someone who is worried about somebody else, actually sit down and go, I'm worried about you. I may be wrong on this. Here are the things I'm noticing here. There may be other reasons for it, like they're under a lot of stress or there's something else that's causing it. But at least you're communicating, I care enough to ask the question. So I think that's a good thing to do. The first step, by the way, is to go and see your GP, in case we missed that, but go and see your GP if you're in doubt if there's something not quite right, and they will tell you what to do from there.
I think it really depends on the relationship you have with that person. So if you have a trusting relationship, whether it's like a friend or a colleague, or oftentimes it's usually my students telling me they don't think another student is okay. I think if you're coming from a loving, close place, and that person feels safe, I think it is good to actually broach that, are you okay? And maybe, I have a psychologist, and, something that, you can consider as well if you don't think, if you feel like you're alone and you need somebody to listen to you. But I definitely think that if you're not very close with that person, you shouldn't really talk to that person so directly.
Yeah. So when a student comes to you and goes, I'm worried about another student, what do you do?
So I definitely first pray.
Okay, sure.
I really do. It's really strange because science is really hard. I mean, with the release of the 2017 Nobel laureate, with the medicine winner, one of the winners was like, oh, well, I quit science 5 years ago because I couldn't get funding and everyone was criticizing me so hard, and, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And that is our environment right now, because as with the global recession, when money goes low, first thing to go is science. And so and people ask, Christian scientists have asked, how do you cope? And first thing I always do is to pray, because I really do believe in, miracles promised by the Bible. And then after I genuinely pray, not to gossip and hate the student, but because I want their well-being. And then I set up a time where I feel like it's a neutral or safe place, and I broach the subject.
Sure.
But I'm very close to my students.
Yep.
So I think it'll be a bit different if maybe I wasn't there, because you can't never spend time with somebody and then randomly go, hey, let's have this deep conversation.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. But I totally understand. You do need to talk because you care. I think it really depends on where you're coming from, because sometimes you want to talk to attack, to criticize that person. So I think we need to check ourselves.
G, you've spoken about your faith and how that sort of shapes your approach. Today in the news, we read that there's been this big kind of global survey done about people's attitudes to religion, and some have said that they actually think it causes more harm than good, and the stats for Australia are actually quite much higher than in other countries around the world. So if people think that religion tends to cause more harm than good, presumably, I mean, Peter, you've explained a little bit about this, but G also, do you have thoughts about, is religion harmful for mental well-being? How can it be harmful? How can it not be harmful?
I can sort of understand where that's coming from. So if you read the Bible, there are a lot of things that God tries to sort of, spell out. And if you just think about the Ten Commandments, when you think about the context, it had a lot to do with how people were not very nice to each other and were stealing things and were being very selfish. And it was really the 10 things that you really shouldn't do to other people and as well as to God, so that you're a bit different. Because, prehistorically, we know that there was more discrimination and more inequality, and we try to get better and better. But the thing is, oftentimes, because we're broken and, we get really insecure, we often use those rules to judge other people. Oh, well, I'm not adulterous and he is, so I'm a better Christian or I'm a better person. So I can firsthand say that I can see why people would think that way. Because we are not perfect. No Christian's perfect, and no other religion, I'm sure, there's a perfect person. And I met plenty of non-Christians who are wonderful, loving, beautiful people that I really love and respect. So first thing I can say, I went through a divorce a few years ago, and the hardest place for me to be was in the church, because through God's grace, a lot of people who've sort of been sheltered, who've had beautiful Christian parents who loved them, didn't abuse them, or who've never had, bad things happen to them. Although the Bible says it's through God's grace we become children of God, I think as human nature, we like to take credit. We like to take credit that things have worked out well because I've done well. I've done the right thing, and that's why I'm blessed. And so it was really hard, because a lot of the immediate response in the church was because you've done something wrong or you're not trying hard enough. So I can understand where people are coming from, but I do really think that all those things, the rules that the Bible clearly tells us, I have these rules, so you test your own faith and you test your own heart, so you look at it and you change, not that we use it to judge other people. So I think if we did that a little bit better, I think people's impression should change.
Any thoughts to add, Peter?
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think the religion has been used, and let me be more specific. Christianity has been used, I think, in a negative way within the church and without. Partly to do, I think, with judgment and guilt are probably the two big offending kind of things, but. And I don't want to say that's excusable, but I do want to say let's come back to actually what the central message of the Christian worldview is. And actually it's about a grace, and it's about a status that's been given to us by God, not by anything that I have done. And I think one of the things that again, talking about mental health in churches, when I do that, we can fall into the game of playing, I'll pretend I'm okay and you can pretend you're okay, but when it comes to mental health, we can't play that game, and I can't play that game, and we shouldn't play that game, because the worldview that we have means that that's not going to work anyway. There's no truth there. So, yeah.
But I really believe if you really read the Bible, I love the Psalms and I love King David, who was so flawed. And you read Psalms and he was miserable. He was so depressed. I've never seen another bipolar person but so many characters were in the Bible, but David was like, oh, woe is to me. Enemies everywhere. I've done nothing wrong. And why are these people hating me? God, strike them down. I think it really helps to know that you can be yourself. You can have these emotions just because you're Christian or in any religion. But I think really the Bible, for me, because I'm a scientist and I have studied other religions as well, and I really think that the Bible is very real in accepting that humans are very emotional. We make irrational decisions or we make mistakes and we can come back. But even then, God sees our heart. And even then, because, Jesus died for our sins, that he sees us as his children. So for me, it has been really, really helpful to really read the Bible and understand, hey, I can be flawed, but I can still be loved.
Yep.
Cool. All right, so for both, is fear always bad? Are there times we should be more afraid? If there is a good fear, how do you become more afraid, but in a healthy way?
You're the fear expert. I don't know.
You sure?
Yeah.
I have actually really extreme view of this, to be honest. So I think there are two types of fear. One is one that makes you not be able to act, and one that is really only involves God. So I think it can really be, how when someone is so beautiful and so impressive and so pure, and you want to hate them, but they're just they're such good person, you can't, and you're just so in awe of that person. I think that is sort of how. That's a good sort of fear, and I guess not even really a fear, but more like this reverence, right? But I really do think that every other types of fear is actually not very good. I mean, I guess fear has developed so that we don't jump off a cliff or, we don't do stupid things. But the way we feel afraid nowadays is actually not really that. It's a lot to do with things that will never happen. Will I get this job? Will I get this salary raise? Will this person like me? Or if I say the truth, will that person still be my friend? Or will I get judged? And I really don't think all those fears are good in any way. And I think those fears really stem from the fact that you're not secure, that you are loved, that you are valuable no matter what you do. And I think that's not good fear.
Peter?
I was just going to add, let me kind of give a teaser that it's interesting if you read through the Gospels, particularly say Luke's Gospel, the number of things that Jesus actually says about fear is actually quite surprising. So he spends a lot of time talking about don't fear that and don't fear that and don't fear that, but fear this and fear that. I won't mention what they are. You'll have to go and read it yourself. So I just want to give you a teaser on that one.
Peter, how do you deal with making a decision which you actually can't delay, but you're in the middle of your mental fog?
So what I usually try and do, if I can delay a decision, decision making is usually the thing that I find the hardest in my mental fog. There are a couple of things that I will do. If I can, my church is quite aware of what goes on with me, and so if someone comes to me and says, "Can we make a decision about that?" I said, "Can we put this off for a couple of weeks?" That's right. If I can't do that, I do actually. If I can try and make it, I will try and sort of say, I think this is the right decision, but then I'll go and check it. So I'll either go and check it with my boss, or I'll go and check it with my wife, or I'll go and check it with some other people around me, just to make sure that I'm not doing anything particularly stupid kind of thing. So I guess, using the community around me to help me with that process. Yeah.
And why do you think there's an actual stigma around mental health issues in the first place? I mean, you've just described how you've got like these checks and balances going on, but yet at the same time there's a very clear stigma around mental health issues as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I'm wondering whether there is a stigma of just mental health and people just not sure because it affects people's behaviour. I think there's a fear of what are people going to do kind of thing. There's a couple of guys that I meet with who have other forms of bipolar, and we kind of, I've got to be careful how I do this because we find this funny, but other people don't. We've got to have our own sense of humour. But, people particularly, because bipolar tends to be the way that it's been presented in media and that sort of thing is that we're kind of scary people and you don't know what we're going to do next and whether we're going to hurt someone or anything like that, which is actually not particularly true. So I think there's some media kind of presentations that have been unhelpful, but there is I think just the fear of the unknown. And I know that particularly true with bipolar, but I think there's a sort of a stigma that's sort of attached to different types of mental illness along the way. So I was thinking, for example, for women who deal with postnatal depression, there is sort of a fear of going, I'm a failure as a mum because I've got postnatal depression, which is not true. But I think there is that stigma that's attached to that as well. So there's the stigma generally of mental health, the unknown, but there's also particular stigmas attached to different, very particular kind of disorders and illnesses. But yeah.
Actually, further on that point, maybe, G, you'll have a comment about this. Do different groups suffer, or are there particular groups that are particularly at risk? And if so, are they particularly at risk for various reasons? Like, we often hear that men are a particular risk category, LGBTI people as well. Postnatal depression affects new mums, and then young people as well. Are there specific sorts of afflictions
definitely.
for each kind of group?
So first, I think there's stigma because how mental illnesses are often sort of an extreme versions of the emotions we already feel. Whereas, let's say cancer, it feels like you either have it or don't have it. But when you say, I feel really anxious or I'm having a panic attack, sort of people sort of know what you sort of mean, but you feel it in a very extreme way, but people feel like, well, you can control that because I've been through that before. And I think that's why there's a stigma. It's not like a tumor or something, immediately biological that you can just grab. Although so much research in the last 50 years have shown that there's so much biology involved with the way we feel, and that makes sense, right? And in terms of vulnerable groups, because mental illnesses are actually in fact biological, just like cancer and diabetes, and if anything, actually, it feels like it's under less control than your lifestyle. So, for example, a lot of cancer and a lot of diseases that we have a lot of sympathy for, and we should sympathize, are due to years of terrible lifestyle. And it's really funny. I was in a dementia forum and they were talking about all these horrible medications that you can give these Alzheimer's patients, but the doctor was like, these medications are nothing compared to smoking and being morbidly obese and terrible treatment that you give your body, and we give a little bit of medication to help and they start going crazy about the toxic effects of it. And it's true, but mental illness in a way is actually not as a consequence of that, it has a lot of genes involved, a lot of chemistry involved, and because of that, adolescence is a hugely vulnerable population in all of those mental cases. So autism, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, addiction. Anxiety is the first to emerge from childhood, but all of these tend to emerge 75% during adolescence. But because the kids don't, as soon as they tell parents, and a lot of, not all, but a lot of the parents can say, just get over it, or it's just puberty blues, they don't get treated, or there aren't enough treatment facilities and they manifest and get worse and worse. Some people develop coping mechanisms that are actually terrible in the long run by drinking or just not talking and exploding or committing some crime. So it's really early life that are particularly vulnerable. And because it's a chemistry and biological, they all have this biology, women tend to suffer more from anxiety and depression, and men suffer more from substance abuse. And schizophrenia is also very, very male heavy as well. So, and it turned out that how women have X chromosome, and going back to your high school biology, men have XY, and that's why men can get bald because XY. And those XX and XY, those chromosomes actually get differentially influenced and get mutated depending on what you eat and how you sleep and how you experience things from infancy. So our genes are constantly influenced by what we do and what we eat. So it is actually not surprising looking back now that we understand more about biology, why males can suffer from some things and females suffer from different things. Yeah.
Wow. Did you know that?
Biology.
Someone has a question regarding their 16-year-old son. G, have you any advice for dealing with a 16-year-old son who suffers from anxiety and an elevator phobia?
Oh, very common. So I definitely do think that seeing a GP, a professional, would really help, and also letting him know that it's not his fault. It's weird, like I think not just as adults, adults we have responsibilities, but I think as children and adolescents we feel really guilty and responsible for a lot of things, ranging from like parents' breakup or friends' suicide. People blame themselves, and I think first let them know that you're on their side. You take what they say very seriously. I think oftentimes adolescents, they stop talking to their parents so that it becomes too late to help them, because they feel like if they do say anything, they either get scolded or they're not taken seriously. So take the person seriously and then see a specialist, and also let them know that, don't say I've been through it before, it's because you're young. When you get better, older, it'll get better. And I say that I'm really sorry that you feel this way, and I'm hurting for you, and just tell me what I can do. But I think first place we can start is seeing a GP.
For those who work in a full-time job and are incapacitated at times because of mental illness, what do you suggest? Should they try to take some sick days, or just push through it? There've been some times when I've had to take a couple of sick days, and I don't feel guilty about doing that. I mean, in some ways, as G said, there is a biology, there is an illness. As someone kind of, I was talking to one guy who had a severe case of depression where he was in bed for months and months, and then someone just said, just get out of bed. And it's like saying, that's like telling someone who's got a broken leg, just go for a run on a marathon. And so, I don't see that there is a problem with taking sick days where it's needed. If it's, actually, I'll probably want to leave it there, because I don't want to give people career advice at this point. But do you want to add anything?
Well, I totally take sick day leaves all the time. I really don't think we are constant all the time. Life is not constant. Shit happens to you. The world is always changing, and I really think everything's a wave. My work has been really tough, and we've been low for a long time. But whenever my students worry, I say, what comes down has to go up. And I think that's how I feel with work productivity. Sometimes you're productive, and sometimes you're not. And sometimes you feel really crap, and sometimes you just need to take the day off. So I really believe in not just for physical sicknesses, but when people feel terrible, for people to take sick leaves, and I certainly do. As I said, I have a psychologist as well, but sometimes you just need to rest. Sometimes you just don't want to deal with anybody and don't talk to anybody or be nice or polite, and that's okay.
That's okay too.
Yeah. Sure. We are entitled to a few days a month, but people really don't take it. But I do think there's a bit of a cultural thing that stops people from taking those, because they get judged, or bosses don't let them. Yeah.
And I think that's particularly true for men. It's like, I'm talking as an Aussie male.
I do think
right.
So
Aussie males, we have this thing of we don't want to show weakness, because that's the way we are, and that strongman mentality can actually be a weakness in and of itself. So I want to turn that around on itself and say, okay, before you start falling into the strongman mentality, be aware that's a weakness, and you've got to actually admit, you know what, I can't do everything. I've actually got to take some time off. I need to have a rest. It will make you a better man in the long run. Yep.
What do you guys think of this whole rise in mindfulness, mindful colouring in, meditation, all these apps that you can download to help you meditate? Thoughts?
100% mindfulness is scientifically beneficial. Whether colouring in is mindfulness, skeptical. Colouring in is not mindfulness. Mindfulness is about, quietening yourself, your soul, and trying to focus on the moment. Not eating because things are there, but eating because you're enjoying the sensation and you're becoming full. And once you're full, you stop. Mindfulness is about, I'm focusing on this work, not constantly checking Twitter or Facebook or email, but doing this work for 10 minutes and then, having 2 minutes break. That has shown to actually, our brain is amazing. So when we have memories and different elements trigger these emotions, it is because all these separate parts of the brain have separate functions, but they talk to each other. And that's sort of what makes you as a whole. And it has shown, like so many studies have shown neuroscientifically, mindfulness mindfulness can, change how these brain regions talk to each other, or how efficient they become in processing, food and glucose and things like that for the brain. So I think that sort of taking time to focus on the present, not on the past, not on the future, what you have to do tomorrow, is actually very beneficial for mental health. Yeah, but colouring in, I'm not sure. There's no evidence for lumosity to increase your health or mindfulness, as well as colouring in is actually mindfulness. That's very different. So be careful.
Gee, I'm really struck by your picture of how the brain works and how the different regions talk to each other. But then at the same time, the function of all those different parts talking to each other produces you. Is the you that results something that has a material basis, that is just something that arises from a physical, thing, the brain? Or is the you something kind of more than that? I mean, you're a Christian, so I'm imagining you're thinking it's more than that. But how do you make sense of that as a scientist and as a Christian?
I have no idea. I think our body, our spirit, or some people also has mind, they want to say mind and soul, are all connected. And I think how we feel, so ever since we discovered scientifically that how we feel or what happens to us, what we eat, whether we exercise or not, whether we're stressed or not, can actually change how our gene can express itself. And that's how identical twins actually start to look different over time. Ever since we discovered that, we actually have some sort of explanation behind why the way you feel constantly actually can change your biology. So I do think that everything we feel and everything we are has a biological basis. And I think that's extremely tied to our spirit. But I'm not sure whether they are all like these separate things that we can separate out. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned social media as well, and there's been studies revealing or discussing the perhaps harmful aspects of social media use, particularly among young people and young women in terms of Instagram and a really body-focused culture. Do you have thoughts about social media and how, it impacts mental health?
I mean, I'm not sure about mental health, but I know for myself, I took Facebook off my phone, and it made a huge difference to me in that just being able to focus. Like, I think there is a certain amount, the brain is a hardwired thing, but there's a certain rewiring that can kind of take place on a smaller level. And I think social media and having smartphones and that thing, there's a little bit of that going on. And I've noticed that since I've taken having to constantly check and getting that information in little bites, I'm actually able to concentrate better on just reading and getting more information and thinking and actually slowing down my brain a little bit. So that's just a personal experience thing, that it's interesting what social media has done for us. And reflecting on that as a society, I don't know that we're actually, as a society, learning to actually reflect on information. It's just so much being thrown at us that we're dealing with stuff and not stopping to think, what does that mean? What is that going to do? And then we're just moving on to the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. It's just going so fast. But
there are actually studies showing that Instagram users are the unhappiest people compared to other social media, because everything that's on Instagram is so beautiful and everyone's like having this beautiful time. Everyone looks so beautiful. I personally stopped doing Facebook. I have one account now. Sorry, I need water. Because I was constantly bombarded with these people having fun, and I didn't even want to go to this party, but I was feeling FOMO. I was like, what? Why wasn't I aware of this? I would have rejected. But so it was terrible. It was like I was feeling unhappy and rejected, when if I didn't know, I wouldn't have cared at all. So I stopped. When I moved overseas and I reinstated it, but all the notifications are off. I only do it because some people say, check your Facebook, I invited you to something.
Sure.
But there are actually real studies showing that, some forms of social media definitely decreases unhappiness, especially in our teenagers, because they feel more FOMO and they really feel like a loser compared to all these beautiful pictures. But in terms of, there are actually real studies showing that if they look at kids from Africa with less internet versus kids from London, how they process memory and driving and simulated attention tasks, completely different. So the quick attention switching things, the kids in internet areas do really well. They're very good at attention switching, but they're terrible at maintaining attention. So there's definitely evidence that this sort of lack of delay of gratification, being able to Google things immediately, like even my students who are only 10 years younger than me, they have no delay of gratification because they could bail anytime because they've always had a mobile phone. They could look up information anytime, and not being able to download a PDF, they're so frustrated. So I've been so frustrated. And I'm like, for how long? And they're like, 2 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm like, have you been to the library? And they're like, I've never been to the library. I used to photocopy books, you know what I mean? It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of almost, they are affected in a way that, and we can't blame them. It's the generation they grew up in. They have everything at their fingertips. But it sort of became that the words became meaningless in a way. I told them, can you imagine if I wanted to meet a friend? Actually, I have a friend here where there's this story. I had to remember and turn up to the date and the time and place, or else I risk standing up my friend. But there's no such thing like that anymore, So they found it profoundly confusing when they can't cancel in the last minute. So it definitely is changing our brains in a way, almost like a drug. A drug is very addictive. What makes something addictive or not? Like a heroin addict is, when they get treated, let's say they get something like methadone, which has exactly pretty much same chemistry. But the reason why heroin is bad, but methadone isn't bad, I'm totally pro-medicating if it makes you function and have, a happy life, is because heroin gives you a quick high, but it crashes really badly. So you need it again to feel normal. But methadone is very gradual and very slow. So you can you don't have to continue to go back to it because there's no crash. So it's about how you can function as a person. And almost this social media, this internet is giving that quick fix, but then it's also giving you that quick drop. So it is sort of changing how our brain's working so that you can't handle the low, slow happiness,
So that's probably one thing that you can do. You can deactivate Facebook on your phone in a bid for your mental health as well.
You can be stronger than me and not feel FOMO.
I'm really sorry. We have to end it there, unfortunately, because they're going to kick us out really soon. But it's quite clear that tonight's discussion, maybe has brought up some issues for you or someone that you know. So we do encourage you to seek some support through Beyond Blue and Lifeline. The numbers will appear on the screen. And, it's a good place to start.